Oh, hey guys, it's your girl, Little Miss Robot Soldier. I have amnesia, so I can't remember a goddamn thing. Except for the fact that I gotta talk about this Cave Story game. Well, you know what that means. Time to talk about it on my channel, baby! I love Cave Story! Woohoo! Huzzah! Now, for the two people who don't know what Cave Story is, this was basically the first popular indie game, meaning without it, we wouldn't have the modern indie gaming landscape we see today. There is no Undertale without Cave Story, no Hollow Knight, no Hades, no Signalis, no, Five Nights at Freddy's. Thanks a lot, Cave Story. Released way back in 2004. Wow, look at that. This game and I are the same age. Cave Story was created by one guy, Daisuke Pixel Amaya, over the course of 5 years. He wrote the story, composed the music, drew the sprites, and he released the game for free. Yes, this game is free. You can go download it right now if you want. Pixel was inspired by various games on the Famicom, most notably Metroid and Mega Man, and he wanted to write a compelling, heartbreaking story tackling themes like war and empathy. It's since been translated into English and ported/remade dozens of times, so obviously I have a ton of options to choose from, and really, you can't go wrong with anything unless you're doing the 3DS version. There's the original freeware version, any version of Cave Story Plus, but for this video, I'm gonna be playing Dokutsu RS, a fully functional fan-made port of the game rewritten to run in a new engine. Yeah, screw you, Nicholas! The only major issue I found with it was a pretty annoying flickering problem in OBS, which only went away when I had the game in windowed mode, so because I'm too lazy to zoom or crop, I took the liberty of adding a border to the gameplay. Just thought I'd mention that real quick. Oh, and one last thing before moving on. I usually never say this because it's usually just a given, but my videos are always spoiler heavy, and of course I'm doing the same here. Pixel wants people to go in blind when playing the game, so I urge you guys to only keep watching if you've beaten it before. If not, you're missing out on a genuinely awesome time. I mean, I don't mind either way because I like money and I need more people to be enlightened. When I announced I'd be making this video, I got a couple people asking me what Cave Story is, and anyway, without further ado, here's Daisuke Pixel Amaya's Dokutsu Monogatari, otherwise known as Cave Story. Once we get to the first cave, we take control of a robot soldier with amnesia named Quote. This opening teaches us about the basics of platforming, directly inspired by the non-linear opening of Metroid 1. Quote's movement feels very Mario-like, making the platforming in the early game relatively easy. Later on, we get the booster that grants us a multi-directional air dash, which makes platforming harder since the level design starts to be built around it, which is a neat way to ramp up the difficulty in the latter half. After we steal the starter weapon, the Polar Star, from this random old man, we get to partake in this game's combat system. The combat in this game is pretty interesting. Each weapon starts off pretty weak, but the more of these little Doritos collected, the stronger they become. It rewards you for playing well, but your upgrades will be stripped away if you take damage, so be careful. On the topic of weapons, there's plenty of variety here. I already mentioned the Polar Star, which is a nice and simple laser gun, but later on you can upgrade it to the Spur if you decide to keep it. You're gonna want to, since the Spur is the most powerful weapon in the game. There's also the missile launcher, as well as the super missile upgrade, again, like Metroid. Hell, even the health upgrade fanfare sounds straight out of Metroid. Anyway, there's also the Fireball Gun, which behaves like the Fire Flower in Mario. The Bubble Gun, a deceptively simple weapon that's quite a heavy hitter when fully upgraded. And finally, the Machine Gun and the Blade. The Machine Gun requires giving up the Polar Star, but each weapon has its pros and cons. The Machine Gun can rapidly fire 100 bullets when the fire button is held down, and if fully upgraded, it makes you levitate above the ground, but it does need a minute to cool down. Before this playthrough, I did a run with the Machine Gun, and while that's cool and all, I'm just gonna use the Spur for this run. There's also the Blade, but I'll talk about that later because of lore. And speaking of lore, before we even got to play the game, we were greeted with an opening cutscene establishing that something has gone wrong. In this dinky little room, we're introduced to Kazuma Sakamoto trying to get in contact with his sister, Sue. Kazuma's been trapped in this shelter for quite some time, growing hungry to the point he considers feeding on roaches if it means survival, which may give you a good idea of how cowardly this man is. But as to what exactly is going on, we'll find out soon. Now that we made it to the end of the cave, we enter the game's sort of hub world area, Mimiga Village. Mimiga Village is home to these innocent bunny-like creatures, the Mimiga. We're introduced to a couple of them right now, the village leader King, and this innocent little child, Toroko. As you can see, this village isn't very populated. Prior to the events of the game, an evil individual, simply known as the Doctor, started kidnapping all the innocent Mimiga in pursuit of Sue, who's considered an outsider to the other Mimiga. King decides that the best course of action is to turn Sue in order to stop the Doctor's mass abduction, but Toroko decides she wants to protect Sue out of the goodness of her heart. As such, Sue takes refuge in Toroko's house while King and Toroko are fighting over the key. Toroko gets to escape once Quote comes crashing down. A little guy falls down a cave and is greeted by a white furry in a purple outfit? Where have I seen this before? Before continuing, I'll take this opportunity to praise this game's presentation. Pixel's art style is pretty simple, but it's charming as all hell. Do yourself a favor and go on this game's pre-release article on the cutting room floor. It's full of doodles Pixel did before everything was ironed out. But in the game itself, the character sprites, especially Quote, are striking and frankly iconic enough to be easily conveyed from a handful of pixels. And everyone has lighter colors to contrast with this game's dark cave backgrounds. And even if almost all the locations are underground, we still have a good amount of variety, which we'll get to soon. Of course, when Cave Story was ported to PC by the evil organization Nicalis, they gave it entirely new visuals and a remixed soundtrack to justify slapping a price tag on a freeware game, which I'm a little mixed on, honestly. I vastly prefer the original visuals and soundtrack as they're more charming. The new sprites don't look that bad, but to each their own, what can I say? It's also worth noting the Switch version comes with a Famicom-inspired soundtrack as an option, and it's actually pretty good, possibly on par with the original in my opinion. Now, I personally consider the Cave Story soundtrack to be one of the best gaming soundtracks of all time. Every song succeeds at complementing the present mood of the story despite the limitations. I was utterly mind-blown to learn Pixel didn't know shit about music theory and was just winging it. Mimiga Village, for example, is very humble and welcoming, just like the peaceful Mimiga who reside here. Running around Mimiga Village, we get to see things like a cute little farm where we learn about these dangerous red flowers that are deadly to the Mimiga, this hop, skip, and a jump that rewards us with the map system, and a reservoir housing a silver locket underwater. When we enter the shack, Toroko recognizes the silver locket, claiming Sue gave it to her, meaning we've earned her trust. She trauma dumps on us, revealing the Doctor killed her brother Arthur, and despite this, she's still dead set on protecting Sue. How awfully nice of her. And what does Toroko get for being so nice? Why, getting kidnapped by the Doctor's henchmen, of course! Crashing through the doorway comes Misery, dark sorceress and sexiest woman alive, and Balrog, the toaster robot thing. Okay, I looked it up and Balrog is supposed to look like a bar of soap, which is interesting. Anyway, the dynamic duo encase Toroko in this little bubble, mistaking her for Sue before teleporting away. And now it's time for the first boss fight in the entire game, Balrog. Now, this boss fight is very interesting. It's unique in the fact that it's completely optional. Moving on, we now have access to the graveyard, the resting place of Arthur, the hero of the Mimiga, but more importantly, there's a spare key we can use to unlock his house, which has a teleporter to access the levels and red flowers. Interesting. The first level is Egg Corridor, this large mechanical corridor with, well, eggs. Giant incubated eggs, conveniently numbered 1 through 16. Why eggs? Well, we'll get to that soon. Egg Corridor is a pretty straightforward area, all things considered. The bugs and elephants are decent threats to tackle, I suppose, but the real showstopper of this area is this white thing on the floor. We really don't need to worry about that. For now, why don't you go over and get that health capsule, Quote? Of course, the Egg Corridor music is pretty cool. It feels very optimistic and grand, complementing the fun opener level laid out before us. It's giving me Mega Man vibes a little bit. Hey, look at that! The entire reason we're in Egg Corridor in the first place! Well, there she is. That's Sue. Now, you might be thinking, I said Kazuma and Sue are siblings, but Kazuma is a human and Sue is a Mimiga. How peculiar. Again, we'll get to it later. Up next, we have our first mandatory boss fight, which is against this big rabid monster named Igor. All the bosses kind of operate the same, which isn't a bad thing. Each of them likes to move around a lot and throw projectiles at you, and you just have to try and not take damage while blasting away. There's almost never a moment where you need to wait for an opening, and when there is, it doesn't last very long, which is very cool. The only other thing worth noting in this boss is the room that shows the status of the eggs, which has a bed with red flowers. Cool. Oh, and when we defeat the boss, it's revealed he's actually a Mimiga. Interesting. Once we help Sue off the ground, we see she's got kind of a spunky and fiery personality, always willing to stand up for what's right. These eggs are actually unhatched dragons, and Sue's here to secure an escape route for her and her brother. She hit a roadblock when Egg 0 requires a password to hatch, so our next course of action is to make our way back to Mimiga Village and locate Sue's brother, Kazuma. When we locate him in Grasstown, Quote goes over to investigate while King decides to give Sue the old Mimiga Village welcome. Grasstown is very interesting. A nice blue and green palette to contrast with Egg Corridor's sort of putrid yellows and browns. Uneven ground, more death traps, stricter platforming, verticality, new weapons, sleeping with a Mimiga. Huh. Oh, and also a lot of enemies. Egg Corridor was simpler with its enemy placements, but Grasstown decided, oops, all critters. Wait, that's their name? It's a good thing we gained the fireball here, pretty useful to cut through the crowd at the start. We obtain it by finding Santa's house key, and Santa here grants it to us once we're inside. Side note, why the hell does he have a death trap in his house? This area's music is very catchy and upbeat, it's definitely one of my favorites. This song has a pretty optimistic feel to it, which kinda contrasts with the chaotic gameplay in this area. Finally, we make it to the shack Kazuma is stuck in. Talking to him through a crack in the wall gives us a rusty key, which unfortunately for Kazuma doesn't open the shack door. Instead, it opens the door to the power supply room, and turning it on reveals a killer robot! Oh no, what are we gonna do? Balrog tells us they found out Toroko isn't Sue, and the doctor was pissed off when finding out, smacking Misery up real good. We'll get more Balrog content soon, but after Balrog fight number 1, our favorite bar of soap levitates out of sight. Pulling the killer robot out of the ground makes him thank us, and in return we can now free Kazuma from his imprisonment by building a bomb. This robot is only capable of creating explosives, so he gives us a shopping list so we can make our bomb. We need jellyfish juice, charcoal, and a gum base. Jellyfish juice is a key item exclusive to Grasstown, obtained by killing the big jelly at the beginning. We can use it to put out 3 fireplaces in the game, and I know for a fact some people aren't a big fan of needless backtracking regarding the jellyfish juice, but I personally didn't mind. After all, there's an area later where backtracking is a little more egregious. Charcoal is obtained by putting out Santa's fireplace, and talking to Kazuma grants us a key to gum. This door is just called Gum. Inside we get the gum base, but we meet up with Misery. Misery recognizes Quote to be a soldier from the surface, and she remarks she wasn't aware there were any left, which is very interesting. When Balrog shows up again, he tries warning her of how awesome and badass Quote is, but Misery also reveals that destroying robot soldiers is Balrog's duty, meaning whatever the robot soldiers were tasked with a long time ago clearly conflicts with the Doctor's plans. Anyway, Balrog boss fight number 2. He's a frog now. He's Balfrog. After that's done, we travel back to the robot, get our bomb, and blow up the door to rescue Kazuma. Kazuma is extremely grateful for his rescue, and shortly after we're introduced to another ally, Professor Booster. Kazuma, Sue, their mother, and Professor Booster were all part of a research team sent to the floating island where the game takes place, but once all the Doctor shit happened, the research team was separated. Booster also recognizes Quote as a soldier, wondering how the hell he got here, but he brushes it aside for a crucial announcement. The doctor has located the red flowers. I've been alluding here and there that something about these red flowers isn't right, and we're finally about to find out what these red flowers do. A war is brought up, adding urgency to our mission to stop the doctor, and now that most of our scientists are assembled, we can journey back to Mimiga Village, and we see that Sue took the liberty of filling King in on the doctor's evil plan. But not before Kazuma and Booster fucking die. The red flowers are also called demon flowers. Upon consumption, it turns the user into a strong, rabid beast incapable of reason. We've actually seen the effects of the demon flowers before with the Igor boss fight and the rabid Mimiga jump scare in Grasstown. The doctor's been gathering the Mimiga and is currently searching for the demon flowers in order to turn the Mimiga people into his army, his mindless murder weapons. He intends to start a war on humanity. And while it's never stated in-game, there's a popular theory that Arthur boiled the demon flowers into tea to gain strength without losing his sanity, which is why there's red flower petals in his home. Booster lets us know the red flowers are located in the Sand Zone, a region far too dangerous for any human or Mimiga to traverse, but not too dangerous for everyone's favorite mute amnesia-ridden robot soldier. It's all up to Quote to rescue Toriko, save the Mimiga, and stop the doctor's evil plan. With this massive responsibility bestowed upon us, we warp to the third level, the Sand Zone. There's some pretty unique visuals like the sunstones, the sand with bones littered about, the fabled stray pixel in the boss arena. Wow, that's infuriating. There's also new enemies in the form of these angry skeletons, the birds, and the Super Mario Bros. 3 Angry Suns. When it comes to the music, Sand Zone's track Meltdown 2 is pretty chaotic to fit the story context, and it sort of gives off a crazy Wild West vibe, especially in the counter melody. While I do like Meltdown 2, I will admit I kinda prefer Meltdown 1, the unused version of this song, which is what they remixed in Cave Story Plus. It doesn't exactly give the same feeling as the original, but it's still a cool listen in my opinion. This level also nets us the machine gun if we please, and like I said before, this is the fuck platforming weapon. But you may be wondering, how do we get the machine gun in the first place? This is Curly Brace. If you don't know who Curly is, well, don't lie to me. Curly is a robot soldier with amnesia, just like Quote. When Curly woke up, she was surrounded by these Mimiga children, taking it upon herself to look after them. While she has no recollection of her life before waking up, she remarks she was probably a Mimiga butcher like the other robots. Curly is a great addition to the story, being a narrative mirror to Quote. She's more energetic and cheery while still having empathy toward the Mimiga. She's willing to go through great lengths for the people she cares for. Some might say she would even give her life. Sorry. The implication that the robot soldiers were sent to this island to possibly kill the Mimiga just makes Quote's motive of being the hero all the more compelling, and it's cool that we now have more bits of his backstory thanks to Curly. But of course, we have to fight her before we get to all of this. I get that Curly's response here is justified, but like, what did Pixel think he was doing with this? Making a Sonic game? Whoa, this is far better than any Sonic game I've played. Back to our main objective, we get a boss fight with this big robot, allowing us to enter an entirely new area of the Sand Zone below these sunstones. Down this new path, we can enter this hidden shack, the home of Jenka. Jenka is an old hermit witch who secludes herself out in the Sand Zone, and she just so happens to also be Misery's mother. When Balrog crashes the party again, he says he and Misery have a new master now, implying they served someone other than the doctor since they last met with Jenka. And Balrog is currently looking for the key to the storehouse where the demon flower seeds are apparently being kept. Now, Jenka's got a death grip on that key, and she won't let it fall into anyone's hands, not even Quote's. In hopes to probably change her mind, we go on this little fetch quest to retrieve her 5 puppies, and Yeah, this is that other section of backtracking I mentioned earlier. Honestly, looking for the puppies isn't the worst thing in the world. I just think it'd be better if we could carry multiple at once or something. Now, they do fix this in the Switch port of this game, but I'm not playing the Switch port for this video, am I? You also can't pick up the puppy in Curly's house unless you talk to this Mimiga beforehand, which is kind of annoying. I mean, at least their barking is kind of adorable. With each puppy collected, Jenka tells us a story about the Mimiga going over the war that Booster and Kazuma alluded to earlier. Jenka confirms that the robots were in fact deployed to the island to kill the Mimiga, along with any humans in the way. With no other option, the Mimiga turned to the demon flowers, consuming them in hopes of gaining the strength to fight back. The Mimiga were victorious, but in their rabid state, they made their way to the surface of the island, killing the remaining humans. The war was only confined to this island, but the Doctor plans to unleash this force onto the whole world. And unfortunately for us, when we retrieve the remaining retriever, Balrog takes the storeroom key by force, allowing the villains to seize the power of the red flowers. And when we step inside, the game, for the most part, drops the chipper attitude as we finally come face to face with our main antagonist, the Doctor. This first scene with the Doctor is very chilling. This man towers over misery, his eyes obscured by his glasses. He's wearing a tall metallic headpiece with a blood-red iris in the center, the Demon Crown. The Doctor was originally part of the Sakamoto research team, serving as their medical expert before his dark intentions were revealed, seizing the power of the Demon Crown. As such, Balrog and Misery serve as his slaves. We actually get to see the Doctor pick up the Demon Crown from his resting place, featuring Balrog and Misery trapped in stasis before we even get to the game's title screen. But back to the present scene, I have to praise the music again. The Doctor's theme song, Tyrant, perfectly complements the demonic nature of the Doctor. It's slow, intimidating, and just plain evil. Misery offers to consume a demon flower to confirm their effects, but the Doctor has something far more sinister planned, testing it on none other than Toroko. Suddenly, King bursts into the room, striking Balrog with his blade to save Toroko, but he was too late. Toroko consumed a demon flower, and soon she wouldn't be herself anymore. And once Misery disposes of King and the Doctor disappears with the demon flower seeds, we're forced to put Toroko down. Something I like about this boss is that during any other boss encounter, you'll hear a triumphant jingle when you beat it. But here, there's nothing. This isn't a moment of triumph. Toroko was innocent. Quote had to do what he had to do. As King lays on the floor, drawing his last breaths, we promise to avenge him, adding King's blade in our arsenal. This weapon probably has the best upgrade at level 3, so why don't we take a gander? It's a good thing Balrog and Misery are here to throw me in the labyrinth. Oh, and also Misery throws Balrog in there because she's sick of his shit, I guess. Like the other weapons, King's blade kinda sucks at level 1, but in all 3 forms, it does a great deal of damage. At level 3, King's soul is summoned to aid you in battle, which is such a nice touch. I love this thing. This opening section of the labyrinth where you have this vertical platforming challenge to do, as well as a horizontal one afterwards, is a neat way to introduce new obstacles in this area, the big moving blocks and these roach guys. But a great way to kick off the second half of this game is when we go through this door and Jenka's frankly monotonous theme song is upgraded into this banger. The roaches serve as new enemy types, but there's this nifty little store where they act as NPCs. One of them reveals Jenka sent them to the labyrinth to protect something, which we'll get to once we make our escape. And this shop is also where we get one of the optional Polar Star replacements, the Snake, which is apparently pretty good and it goes through walls, but I wouldn't know as I prefer the machine gun or even the Spur. And speaking of the machine gun, it seems we aren't the only ones tossed down here, as Curly's bedridden in this humble infirmary. We gotta help her out, right? Time to go to the storage room to get the all-magical cure-everything pill. But not before Balrog boss fight number 3, baby! Never mind, according to this nurse, it was a ghost. Kind of a shitty ghost, to be honest. That was not scary at all. Right next to the clinic is this enticing door that seems impossible to get to with a simple jump. Normally, this would be easy with a level 3 machine gun, but a well-calculated damage boost is just as viable. Take a look at that, everyone! Now I won't lose as many upgrades upon taking damage. The rest of the labyrinth isn't too bad. In fact, it's embarrassingly easy. I mean, look at this empty hallway with nothing but enemies. You call this level design, Pixel? I mean, where's all the- wait, why do I hear boss music? Oh my god! So it turns out Professor Booster was also sent down here by Misery, and judging by the fact I went down to talk to him, the people who played this game already definitely know which ending this run is. Yeah, there's multiple endings, but don't fret, I'll be showcasing all 3 of them. Anyway, Booster gives us the booster and he fucking dies. He fucking he croaks. Except I'm not joking this time, he's actually dead. That fall sure was brutal, huh? In his last moments, he gives us the Booster 0.8, a prototype of the Booster 2.0. Professor Booster meant to continue working on it, but Misery got to him, unfortunately. But wait, this means that the others back at Mimiga Village, Kazuma, Sue, Jack. I forgot about Jack. This is Jack. He's pretty cool. Are they okay? As usual, the only way to find out is forward. We meet up with Curly by this boulder, which is the only way out of the labyrinth. The boulder is far too heavy to push out of the way, and it's a good thing it's time for Balrog fight number 4, baby! Woohoo! And with that, we're done with all the Balrog boss fights. This leaves Balrog with a total of 4 boss fights, with the Clinic Ghost counting as a Balrog fight, and 5 if you count the optional boss back at Mimiga Village. Congratulations, Balrog! Now, he does help move the boulder under the condition we tell no one. This is actually the last we see of Balrog during the Ending 2 route, which is kind of a shame, really. I guess he can find the way out of the labyrinth himself, but I guess he deserves staying trapped down here for force-feeding Toroko the Flower, Demon Crown Allegiance, or not. Anyway, woohoo! Time to escape the labyrinth, baby! Sure, the research team was kidnapped and Toroko and King are dead, but this part of the game feels a little more optimistic, like we can turn all of this around somehow. This is kind of like the cabin fight from Resident Evil 4, except instead of being trapped in a crammed house and putting your trust in a funny Spaniard, we go on a fun romp with our machine gun robot girlfriend. And while this part's supposed to feel fun, unfortunately it's probably the weakest section in the game, solely due to the fact that Curly's AI can be a little stupid sometimes. If she could actually help take down enemies, that would be great. It also doesn't help that the fully upgraded machine gun makes it hard to see anything on screen. Then again, it could be worse. This section is still fine enough. And the music definitely helps. It's so bouncy and fun. For a brief moment, we're back to that early game Grasstown optimism. I did say for a brief moment, because this next part is... oh boy. Once we make it out of the labyrinth, we're at the core to the island. Gone is the optimism and warm colors of the last area, now replaced with cool blues, more mechanical elements like electric doors we must open, somber music, and that tide below. I neglected to mention the drowning mechanic until now, but Quote has a limited supply of oxygen when you enter water, and you die if it reaches 0. This will be important very soon. When we open the final shutter, we see that the core also acts as a mass graveyard for robot soldiers like Quote and Curly. This batch of soldiers, Team 9, was sent down to the core to destroy it for reasons unknown. This mission proved to be too daunting for Team 9, leaving the area a blood-stained battlefield of rusted parts. It could also be too daunting for Quote and Curly. I mean, after all, it is the next boss fight. As Curly is knocked out, we're forced to start the fight without her. The core kind of looks like a big seed, which makes me think the island sprouted from it or something. We need to aim for the blue eyes in the center while being wary of the projectiles and the current that pushes us back if we get caught. With this fight, you really get an overwhelming sense that the odds are stacked against you. There's no possible way we can win against this thing. It might be a little too overwhelming. Like, I think the boss will be a lot better without the rising water or the air currents, but you know, to each their own, I guess. Against all odds, Quote and Curly actually managed to pull this off, and even Curly seems a little surprised. Misery warps in, says something a little bit racist, and then reveals that destroying the heart of the island would destroy the island itself. The core is needed for the Doctor's evil plan, so once the villains take the heart of the island with them, there's really nothing we can do. We're trapped in this boss arena, slowly losing oxygen. All we can really do is just give up. In a surprise turn of events, Curly gave us her oxygen tank, allowing us to breathe underwater at the cost of her own life. There's no way to take her with us or save her, she's just dead. Curly was a brave fighter, protecting the Mimiga at all costs, always doing the right thing, and she ultimately met her end, giving her life to save us. All we really can do is just keep going. As we're taken by the various currents of the waterways, we're left to think about what just happened. The song that plays here, Living Waterway, is one of my favorite songs in the game. It's intentionally ambiguous, taking different contexts depending on which ending you're going for. Here, it fits the dourness of losing our friend Curly. I do think this is one of the songs done better in the remastered soundtrack. The softer sound font really adds to the feeling, in my opinion. And gameplay-wise, this section is a step up from the previous two. It's fairly simple, revolving around the currents. In order to advance, we need to just go with the flow. This dour atmosphere continues on and kind of takes a back seat in favor of this frankly out-of-place boss fight. But then, we find ourselves back in Mimiga Village. It's been a while since we've been here, only now, it's a ghost town. Going into Arthur's house, we can see a message from Kazuma on the computer telling us to head back to the first level, Egg Corridor. This right here is one of my favorite tropes in gaming, bringing back an early game level and completely fucking it up. This is definitely the Doctor's work, probably destroying all the eggs so no one could hatch any to escape. The layout is slightly altered on account of the whole thing being destroyed. There's even corpses of baby dragons littering the room. The music here is perfect, marking the beginning of the end. It would work just as well as the final level music, and depending on the ending, it actually is the last level. Going into the Egg Zero room, we meet up with Kazuma, who was fortunate enough to escape Misery's assault on Mimiga Village. Kazuma offers us to come with him and escape on a flying dragon. This is one of the three possible endings. The bad ending. The coward's way out. But that's not to say Quote's not justified for running away. Most of our allies are dead, the Doctors gained the upper hand, and all the Mimiga are trapped and ready to become bloodthirsty killing machines to be deployed across the world. As our failed hero rides off into the night sky, Quote and Kazuma settle down in the mountains, out of the Doctor's reach, and they would remain there for the rest of their days. So anyway, ending 2. No thanks, Kazuma! I don't want to lay down and give up. The Mamiga need me. I have lost friends along the way, but they would want me to keep going, damn it. Also, you're kind of a shitty person for abandoning your sister. Just thought I'd mention that. If we ignore Kazuma's offer, we can scale the outer wall of the floating island. As we continuously ascend above the clouds in the night sky, we listen to this melancholic song, simply titled Moon Song. It worked super well back when we were debating on running away with Kazuma or not, and it also just fits as this really tall outer wall. If I somehow fucked this part up and fell all the way down, I probably would have ended it all. And when we finally make it to the top of the wall, the absolute peak of the island, we step through this door and we enter the doctor's plantation. The doctor isn't just planning to poison the Mamiga with the demon flowers, but as we see here, he's exploiting them for labor. Now brainwashed into thinking the doctor is on their side, the Mamiga slave away in this massive farm, growing the very flowers that spell their doom. And for some reason, the optimistic, cheery main theme plays in this part of the game. I honestly don't know why they decided to put this song here. I mean, the circumstances the Mamiga are in right now are kind of grim, so why are we playing the title screen music? I looked online to see what other people thought, and the common consensus seems to be that everything prior to the plantation was just practice for the game's final few sections, and this is also a reward for not pussying out with the bad ending. I mean, I guess I see that perspective. It definitely makes sense. However, come on man, look at the Mamiga. If you ask me, I think another song probably would have fit here, maybe mixing the main theme's optimism with a hint of forebodingness to go with the puppies making chocolate pudding over here, so to speak, but maybe some people disagree. That's the beauty of this game. Everyone's got their own interpretation of how things play out. And besides, I can finally shout out the game's main theme. In order to escape the plantation, we snoop around and find that one Mamiga back at the reservoir. When he goes fishing, we get the teleporter room key, which immediately throws us in jail. Oops. While Quote was knocked out, Sue crammed a letter in our inventory, officially revealing things like the Sakamoto research team, but more importantly, Sue's mother is hiding out somewhere in the plantation, and she'll help us as soon as we find her. The password for Miss Sakamoto's hideout is Litagano Matskoud. When Aeon Genesis was translating this to English, they didn't catch that this was supposed to say Dokutsu Monogatari backwards, which is why we have whatever this means. So after we find the hideout and spill the password, we get to meet Mamorin. I'm gonna be real, I can't remember her name for the life of me. She isn't that fleshed out, and we never find out anything about her other than the fact that she's Sue and Kazuma's mom. I mean, we do know the doctor tossed her off of the island when he found the seeds, which is really funny. How the hell did she survive? Now, the objective here is to build a rocket to make it to the next area, so after we give up our booster 0.8, we don a Mamiga mask, giving us the ability to talk to them. With our newfound powers of being a furry, we get a broken sprinkler, show it to the sprinkler replacer guy, and we get a brand new one to power our rocket. We also need a controller, which brings us to another new character, Ito. Just like Mrs. Sakamoto. See, I already forgot her name. We don't know much about Ito, but we get a good idea of his personality. He's a talented engineer, he's kind of proud of his work, and most importantly, he's a massive coward. But he still chips in to save the day. And thanks to Ito, we now know that he and Sue were both turned into Mamiga by Misery, both of which were originally human. But back to the plot, we get our controller, get a full 8 hours of sleep, and when we ride our rocket to the highest point of the plantation, we enter the final level, the last cave. A black wind blows through our body. All our weapons drop to level 1, except that didn't happen to me. Yeah, not only did the stage's main gimmick not happen in my playthrough, but for some reason the cave's level design was slightly different. Originally, I thought this happened because I had the spur, but I did another playthrough on the Switch version and the stage still had its original layout. Hang on, let me check something. Oh, apparently the layout changes depending on which booster you have equipped, with the 0.8 Final Cave being easier than the 2.0 cave. Now, Final Cave 2.0 is actually one of my favorite levels in the game for its precise platforming and overall difficulty, and here the first version of Final Cave is kind of just the same thing but without the precise jumps or the weapon downgrade gimmick. There's still plenty of difficulty to be found, like the ending with all those presses lined up, and there's even a bit where you can farm for more health and Doritos with these infinitely spawning bats. It's Mega Man X all over again! I'm also a big fan of the visuals here. It isn't that different from something like the first cave, except we now have boiling hot lava. For some reason it looks like blood in the remaster. What? I'm also a big fan of the music, both in the original and in the remaster. You really get the feeling that this is the last gauntlet before confronting the Doctor, and the remaster gives it a sexy saxophone. Long last, we're at the top of the island, the balcony. After the tough gauntlet that was the final cave, we get to save and replenish our health at the prefab house, and there's even a grim reminder of Professor Booster's fate if we inspect the shelf. There's a few unfortunate Mimiga under the influence of the demon flowers, a nice marble statue of an angel, a couple gravestones, and we also see the helicopter the research team came from. One last thing before moving on is the secret message on the top of the wall along with the extra health and Doritos. That's pretty cute. As we set foot into the next room, we meet up with Misery at the altar where the demon crown was found. Now considering us a formidable adversary, Misery gears up for our first of 3 boss fights. And man, I gotta say, I'm so glad I got the spur for this run. I feel so bad for Misery. Moving on to the next room, we see dozens of Mimiga trapped in cages. Standing in the center of the room is the Doctor himself, showing off more of his master plan. While only Mimiga are affected by the demon flowers, the Doctor fashioned a red crystal from their power, which has the ability to affect humans as well, which doesn't sound good at all. And now we finally get to fight the Doctor, showing us the powers granted to him by the demon crown. Those powers being flight and the ability to shoot you with red orbs. Again, the spur is incredibly useful, but just make sure not to accidentally hit the crystal or the orbs. When we deal enough damage to him, the power of the crystal is too much to bear, mutating the Doctor, not unlike the various rabid Mimiga we've seen throughout the game. His attacks are a lot more aggressive now, like sending a barrage of bats in our direction or trying out the Wario Land shoulder bash, but again, it lasts like 30 seconds max. One last secret before the final boss is some extra health we gain by talking to Chaco, the purple Mimiga. You might remember her from Grasstown when she and Quote were doing the Tube Snake Boogie. I foolishly used up my life pot here, which is a single-use complete health replenish obtained by completing the Jenka Puppy Fetch quest, but I let Chaco help me when I replayed it on the Switch version. Regardless though, once we climb the final steps of the Doctor's tower, we enter a dark room with the core of the island, ditching its green for pale undead blues. Misery threatens to kill Sue if Quote doesn't back away, and Misery even remarks on how Quote is noticeably more human than any of the other robot soldiers. Believing the Doctor to be dead, Misery actually gives us an opportunity to escape the island, but before anything else happens... This is the final boss. The Doctor's spirit mutates Misery and Sue while he possesses the core in a chaotic 3v1. Just like the original core boss, it can be slightly overwhelming, but the difference here is we get to take down Sue and Misery first, just so the core itself isn't as hard. Everything about this scene is awesome. Sue and Misery's mutated designs look great. Misery looks a little unsettling, and I like how Sue looks like a fusion of her human design with Mimiga elements. And that unsettling red face on the undead core, god, it looks great. He also looks good when he smiles for the camera and shows us his hole. Oh wait, no, that came out wrong. Did I mention this game also has one of the best final boss themes in all of gaming? The WiiWare soundtrack though. With the core destroyed, the island starts to crash down from the sky. Sue, now back to being a regular Mimiga, urges Quote to come with her on the helicopter. Judging by the empty cages, I'd assume the Mimiga made it out safely. I mean, they're all pretty small, so I suppose they could all fit in the chopper. But as for the rest of the inhabitants of the island, they all sadly couldn't make it. Kazuma catches us after we miss the helicopter and we ride off into the clouds now that peace has been preserved. Credits roll. That was a pretty solid ending if you ask me. Now, we aren't exactly done yet because there's plenty of secrets in this game as well as additional bonus content added in future re-releases. I already mentioned getting Curly's underwear in Sand Zone, but in Cave Story Plus it unlocks Curly's story, a what-if scenario where Quote and Curly switch places, which is pretty cool. Rest in peace, Curly. There's also cool challenge levels like the Sand Pit or Wind Fortress, which is kind of just more Cave Story, so if you like the gameplay of this game, you're in luck. There's also things like a boss rush and special holiday reskins if you play the game on Halloween or Christmas. Trying this out put a big dumb smile on my face, and I love that the Halloween reskin gives Misery and Curly, Morgan, and Samus costumes respectively. But aside from things added in the Plus port, there's a fair amount of secrets found throughout the original game, like the Whimsical Star, the 290 stopwatch, and I mean technically the spur is kind of a secret reward for keeping the Polar Star, which is obtained by returning it to the gunsmith once you make it back to Mimiga Village after the waterway. Man, it's crazy that it's taken this long for me to mention that. But I think the biggest, most well-known secret of them all is none other than the best ending. Now, the normal ending where the island crashes down as a result of the humans' actions, it was a pretty fitting ending. It's kind of a downer, but it's a little realistic if you ask me. The research team got to walk away scot-free, and the casualties of this game had no say in the matter, characters like King or Toroko. And even if the Doctor was killed, things like this have happened with the Demon Crown before, so it's only a matter of time until someone new bears its power. It kinda seemed like Pixel felt bad about the implications of this ending, so he gave us a secret third ending where we get to save Curly's life and take down the guy who created the Demon Crown in the first place. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but this is basically the too good to be true ending. So without further ado, it's time to play the game all over again. Okay, so now you have to ignore Professor Booster when he falls down. I don't know why the game's main theme of empathy kind of clashes with the fact you have to let him die here, and it especially doesn't make sense that he croaks when you go down to save him. Whatever. I like to think seeing Quote making that jump gave Professor Booster the strength to keep going or something. We gotta do the rest of this Booster 0.8 free, and when we make it to the core, before triggering the boss, for some reason, ignoring Booster makes a tow cable spawn at the corner of the room. There is no correlation between these two things, like, at all. I have no idea how anyone could have figured this out back in the day. Anyway, we get the tow cable, suffer through the worst boss in the game, drown, get the oxygen tank from our robot wife, except now we can take her with us thanks to the tow cable. Now the Waterways song is recontextualized now that we're on the right track to the good ending. Just make sure not to miss this jump or else... In this safe room, we learn how to drain water from robot lungs and continue to go about our way. After the boss fight, Curly will start to drift away into the current. This is fine, this is intended, don't worry. When we make it back to Mimiga Village, Booster shows up again through the teleporter, giving us the Booster 2.0. And after a long trek to the plantation, Curly's found in the infirmary, once again with amnesia. I'm crying, dude, they gave her double amnesia. Going back to the graveyard in Mimiga Village, there's a special mushroom we need to use to bring Curly's memories back. It's kind of funny that the mushroom tries to trick us by giving us a useless badge, but after we briefly fight him, we get to force feed Curly the mushroom's corpse. And now Curly's memories are back, even before she met the Mimiga. This is the first time Quote's name is ever mentioned, and she reveals the true mission of the robot soldiers. They were originally sent to this island to seize the power of the Demon Crown, with the Mimiga being an unfortunate casualty of their mission. Quote and Curly, on the other hand, were sent to this island to destroy it. After battling one of the previous crown owners, Quote and Curly unfortunately lost, losing their memories over 10 years ago. But now that our true mission is revealed, Curly gives us the Iron Bond, a symbol of their unbreakable friendship and proof that we officially landed on the best ending path. Like I mentioned earlier, with the Booster 2.0, Final Cave has a brand new layout and all our weapons drop down to level 1, making this level noticeably more difficult, and I much prefer it over the other variant. The Booster 2.0 is a great addition to the gameplay, and I love how precise these jumps are. Of course, there's also the newly added Red Ogre mini-boss, which grants us a useless medal for some reason. This just takes up inventory space. I don't want this. Anyway, the rest of the game plays out like normal, but once the island starts crashing down, we enter the prefab building and enter the secret final area, the Sacred Grounds, otherwise known as the Bloodstained Sanctuary, or hell. Now, this level is hard. No, scratch that. This level is really hard. No, actually, no, that's underselling it. This level is infuriatingly hard. There's tons of ghost stories about this gauntlet online. It's been the bane of every Cave Story player's existence for years. The difficulty spike is so sharp you could probably use it as a butcher knife. This is why I made the executive decision to play this game on easy mode. Oh, shut up! Okay, let me explain. I did beat this on normal back when I first got into Cave Story back in like 2019 or so, but I haven't touched this game in forever. I went on easy just to get back in the swing of things, and I eventually managed to beat hell on normal. So yeah, this area is a huge jump in difficulty, but it's honestly not that hard once you get the pattern down. I was just hemming it up earlier. Hell, there's a section where you can just farm for health until you're full, but I'm getting too ahead of myself. The visuals here stand out from the rest of the game with the fleshy orange blocks paired with the craters in the background. This level also introduces us to a couple new enemies, those being the angel guys, the bigger ones who throw blocks at you, and a mini-boss in the form of Heavy Press. There's even statues of the previous Demon Crown owners after the Heavy Press fight, which gives you an extra collectible upon getting destroyed. And that's really cool. We also get to fight alongside Curly, so shooting our gun fires it in both directions, which is very useful, especially when the angels attack at both sides. I also think the song Running Hell is cool, emphasizing the chaotic nature of this level while the island continues to fall outside. However, I gotta talk about the elephant in the room. The entire reason we're here It kinda stinks. Quote and Curly are on their way to kill the creator of the Demon Crown, meaning the game just throws a brand new antagonist at us, and the level is broken up by intrusive text boxes explaining his backstory. It all just feels so disconnected from the rest of the plot. While they kinda try to force his introduction into the good ending run after Curly gives you the air tank, it still just comes across as being shoved in. Regardless, this guy is Balos. He's Jenka's brother and Misery's uncle. Balos originally used his magic powers to help the people in his village, but the king who ruled at the time grew jealous of his popularity, torturing him and causing his powers to run rampant, resulting in the loss of his wife and child. Jenka was unable to put her brother out of his misery, instead banishing him to the floating island. Early on in the game, Jenka calls Misery her half-wit daughter, implying Misery's power pales in comparison to Balos or even Jenka's back when Jenka was young and powerful enough. I say this because it should be no surprise that Misery forced Balos to create the Demon Crown so she could gain its power, which unfortunately caused her and Balrog to become slaves to whoever donned it. And now that we've gone through hell, we're ready to free Misery and put an end to this curse once and for all in the Sacred Seal Chamber. It's finally time to kill Balos, the guy we literally just met. Balos transforms not once, not twice, but 3 times to try and kill us. The first phase is pretty simple. I can pretty much do it without taking any damage, but when Balos becomes the Majora's Mask moon and tries to crash into us, things start to get a little more hectic. It's pretty fun, actually. I think going through the Sanctuary and Balos immediately after isn't all too bad when you have the practice. It would be easier if there were checkpoints in between. I mean, can you imagine if you died right at the final boss? This game sucks. Okay, attempt number 2. God, I really should have saved my life pot for this boss, huh? Man. See? Wasn't that hard. Now that the island has stopped its collision course, Misery sent Balrog to save our heroes, and the 3 of them fly off into the clouds to live out the rest of their days together. And that was Cave Story. Honestly, I have no idea what else to say. This is one of my favorite games of all time. Everything about the game, the graphics, the music, the levels, the story, most of the time, it's all magic. And the fact Pixel did this all by himself is kinda crazy. This man caught lightning in a bottle, and thanks to him, we now have a wide variety of indie masterpieces out there. I had a grand time revisiting this gem, and if any of you ignored my spoiler warning, I hope you go try it out for yourself. It's literally free. This game is a work of art. With all that said, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notif bell, and follow me on my other socials to keep up with my other stuff. You can also become a patron to get cool perks like seeing your name on the end screen, watching videos early, or the ability to vote in art polls. Once again, shoutouts to Roxy J for being a $10 supporter. It means a lot.